A new Blizzard survey has been sent out to a selection of players, asking various questions relating to Classic Era servers. So these are the ones that were announced at BlizzCon recently, whereby you will be able to choose whether one of your characters moves to the Classic Era server, or even pay an additional fee to clone one of your characters once you've chosen to go into TBC to then move them into the Classic Era servers. So this survey is specifically targeting players looking at staying at 60 permanently or playing their 60 character in addition to their TBC character. So let's read through it together. The survey says the next set of questions will ask you about different types of servers discussed in the BlizzCon Online presentation that the WoW Classic team is considering. Below are brief descriptions of each server type you will be asked about. Please feel free to keep these descriptions available while you are taking the survey to reference while you answer the questions. And they go on to specify between Classic Era servers. These are current WoW Classic servers that are maintained as Classic-only servers. Smaller servers will be combined into a server group that allows players within the same server group to see each other. This is similar to what's going on in retail at the moment, where you can see other players from other servers, but they have an asterisk next to their name. These servers will not unlock the Burning Crusade expansion, so as we just said, they'll be stuck at 60. These servers may include minor or major changes to the gameplay that would make them different to the experience in the original World of Warcraft. So this is looking at minor or major changes to specific gameplay aspects of vanilla WoW. Okay, so this is very important. They're basically saying they are looking at making changes and they do not specify additions. Not quite Classic Plus at the moment, but this is something that could obviously lead on to that. Classic Plus being additional content such as Hyjal, Karazhan, things that they are planning for the content at level 60 in the original game but did not release until further expansions. Burning Crusade Classic servers. These are current WoW Classic servers that will progress into Burning Crusade content. This is what the majority of players are going to do, as they'll be moving on to level 70. Current server name will be maintained, you'll be on the same server. These servers have progressive content patch releases similar to the original release of Burning Crusade. This is the phases they're going to go through, phase 1, 2, 3 and 4. These servers will have minimal changes to fix bugs and provide a smooth gameplay experience that will create a very similar experience to the original Burning Crusade. They're going to make small changes such as no world buffs, changes to drums, and other things like that to improve the gameplay experience as they've done on private servers so that the whole experience is more like the developers were intending. Okay, so let's go on to the next page, see what that says. So we've got the first question here. Below are a few possible features of Classic Era servers. How do you feel about each of these? So it asks if you would like Classic Era servers allowing you to interact with players from other servers within your server group. So can you group up and PvP with and see other players in your server group in the world? I feel this would be a good change if it would be focused at servers with a very low population and potentially also servers with a high population imbalance where you've got servers with maybe 25% alliance or 25% horde where they're being vastly outnumbered and so their gameplay experience is deteriorating due to ganking and not being able to find a group for dungeons, for example. This is something that could be a benefit. One of the main downsides regarding this is the lack of or the reduction in community. The close-knit community of a single server is very important for the vanilla experience. I feel like in retail, seeing other people you've never heard of and even having the asterisk at the end of their name does take away from the overall experience. So ideally I'd want to see free transfers from one server to another rather than just allowing you to see other people in these server groups that they're talking about creating. Going on to the next point, how would you feel about Classic Era servers not progressing into the Burning Crusade and being locked to the end of WoW Classic? So this is asking a broad question. Are you happy with Classic Era servers and being stuck at essentially phase 6, so Naxx? Personally, I can't see much of a reason to do this. A lot of people describe this as having a trophy character so that you can just log on there, you can see it in your character list, You got BIS, tier 3, rank 14, Grand Marshal. But apart from that, like, what are you going to do? The population is only going to decline over time, so finding groups for raids is only going to get harder and harder over time. And I mean, doing Naxx or any sort of PvP for an extended period of time is only going to get more boring. So unfortunately, I don't see the appeal to locking it at the end of Vanilla WoW. Going on to the next question, how would you feel about classic era servers including new content that differs from the original experience in Vanilla WoW? So this is actually then going on to what most of us call Classic Plus. So this is a huge deal. Based on this question and how people react will determine if we get any sort of new content for Classic Era servers. So there's potential here. If people vote very positive about new content at level 60, could see Blizzard going the same route as other games such as Old School RuneScape. I'm really excited about this. Okay, going on to the next question. How would you feel about Classic Era servers including quality of life changes that differ from the original experience in Vanilla WoW? So this is on the same lines as the previous question, but instead of new content, it's just quality of life changes. So again, it would be nice, but these ideally would be things that would be done on a fresh vanilla server. So there'll be small tweaks that improve the gameplay experience overall. So anything you've been annoyed with in Classic WoW over the last year and a half, they would look at these sort of aspects and potentially tweak them to make the overall experience better. Overall, I think this is a good thing. As I say again, it would be better fit for a new fresh server where you can take advantage of these changes as you're leveling up and going through all the raids. Implementing these changes at a capped level 60 server at phase 6, they're nice, I guess, but again, you're going to be stuck to doing Naxx and Battlegrounds for the whole of the game, really. So, seems a bit pointless in that regard for those types of servers. And finally, the last question, how would you feel about Classic Era servers being set to WoW Classic? So I think what they mean by this is no changes, as it is at the moment, phase 6, Naxx, Battlegrounds, that's all you get really. No quality of life changes and no additional content. So again, very similar. Generally don't really see the point of this apart from a trophy character that you might log on to every now and again just for the feel of 60 content and 60 characters. Alright, so a very exciting panel of questions. Let's go across to the next page. How would you feel if Classic Era servers allowed for significant changes or new features to be included in the game? These servers could have changes that dramatically change aspects of the game experience and would make it different from what the original WoW experience was like. For example, layering for high pops, changes to the PvP honor system, etc. Similar to the previous question really, looking at changes and new features. Not really specifying about new content, but generally more so about quality of life changes. So this is very similar to the fourth bar here, the fourth question, in that would you like layering for high population servers and would you like PvP honor system changes? So I would expect the voting to go very similar to the fourth option here. Based on the information in the previous questions, which version of Classic Era servers would you be most interested in playing on? And we've got Classic Era with no changes, Classic Era with just quality of life changes, Classic Era with significant game changes, or none of these. And this is a question gauging exactly what the player base wants. So it is similar to the previous questions, asking about base game, tier 6, quality of life, and then new content and big game changes. So what do people like overall? And personally, I would vote for significant game changes. I really think the game could benefit from new content, taking the game as it is, kind of remixing it or remastering it in the same fashion that Jagex has done with Old School RuneScape. They've taken the base game, the best bit of their game that they've made, and improving on it. But they have to be very careful here. They have to do it within the essence of the original game and the thought process and the design aspects that the original developers had. And this is kind of the biggest risk for us as players, voting on this and allowing them to do that. Because if we trust them to do these changes based on what they want and what they've seen works in retail, for example. I think some of their ideas that they've implemented based on player retention for retail would not benefit Classic WoW and is outside the boundaries of what the original developers intended. What I would like to see is, again, taking from what Jagex has done with old school RuneScape, I'd like to see a voting system, because it's us, the players, that have brought Classic WoW back through initially private servers, just showing how popular they are, and then through that signed petition submitted by one of the original developers of Vanilla WoW, I believe it was Mark Kern. That's what's brought and convinced Blizzard to release WoW Classic initially. The initial surge of inspiration was from the player base. Private servers have made the best changes for the best gameplay experience. There's a big reason why people still play private servers and fresh private servers, to re-level through as a different class to get a different gameplay experience. And that's because they've basically perfected the game. They haven't made it too easy through some of the large changes that retail has made over the years, from really Wrath of the Lich King onwards, such as looking for group, reducing the level you can get a mount, making tweaks to classes, which has made the game become kind of more of a single player game, and it's sort of lost that group effort, especially in 5-mans and raids. Where's CC gone in retail? No one ever uses CC. It's just a huge AoE fest, and you can see that permeating into Classic and the player's game style. All these really, really good things that Vanilla WoW has had, that it's lost over the years. That's what keeps people coming back to these private servers and Vanilla WoW and TBC WoW, really. So that's what we've got to focus on and sort of keep that aspect of the game. And again, what Jagex has done, they've offered the players a voting system where any sort of these quality of life and significant game changes have to be voted on by the player base. And if they do not get 75% positive vote towards them, they just won't go in the game. That's basically asking on every change, players, what do you want? Do you think this will work? And will you like it? And I think that is really the best way to go for Blizzard and these Classic era servers that they're talking about. Alright, so let's have a look at the last pane. So just lastly here, they're asking about how you would feel being able to decide whether your character stays in Classic era or moves into the Burning Crusade Classic. So this, they're trying to get a feel of if you'll feel positive or negative about having that choice as to whether if your character can go to 70 or if it's stuck at 60. For me personally, I'm actually really excited about going into TBC, because it's been so long since I've actually played that content, at the correct level. 12 years ago, for example, 12 or 13 years ago when it originally came out. So I'm looking forward to going that direction to 70. I would only save a level 60 character if it was completely free, because at the moment, what they announced at BlizzConline, Classic era servers with no changes, I really don't see the point of paying for that service and then being stuck at tier 6 at level 60. It's the same content we've been doing already for 4 months since Naxx was released, so I figure most players are pretty burnt out at the moment. The only reason to play on there would be to maybe do an axe, in a few months' time, once you've got over the burnout. But I mean, by that point, everyone's going to be playing TBC anyway, so there's going to be way more content to do in that game. I would be a lot more excited about the Classic era servers if there were significant changes and also a fresh start. Only then would I consider paying a fee to be able to continue on those servers, because in essence that's kind of like a new expansion for Vanilla WoW, depending on what they decide to develop in that regard. This would also bring us on to the issue of timing and when they would release these major changes. We can obviously see that the vast majority of players at the moment in Classic are going to move towards TBC, because that's what's most hyped at the moment. So if they plan to release these Classic era changes and new content potentially down the line during TBC, then players are going to be torn between what they want to do, especially so if they release fresh Classic servers, because there'll be even more of a reason to go back to them, level up a new class with all these quality of life changes and new content at 60. All the while they're progressing through TBC, going through the phases, tier 4, tier 5, tier 6. What are they going to do? Are they going to release these classic era servers and changes during content droughts for TBC or content droughts during retail? The small portion of player base that will want to stay in classic era at the moment, with this first decision that they are presenting to players upon TBC release, is at the moment, I think, too small for them to focus on, unfortunately. And I think the better decision is to let TBC play out, and then at the end of TBC, you'll have those small portion from Classic and small portion of players from TBC who do not want to continue on to the next expansion and then want to go back into vanilla. I think at that point, it would be more beneficial to look at releasing new vanilla content and changes and even fresh servers. I think that's the best point at which they could benefit the most. Well, that's my opinion. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.